Hey folks, the other day I released a video where I broached the subject of Joe Biden reopening a child migrant camp facility center. And now what I wanted to say in that video was that it doesn't matter who does it. It doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats, conservatives, liberals. It doesn't make any difference who does it. It doesn't make any difference who's in power when it happens. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And that I was vehemently opposed to the Trump administration separating children and putting children in detention centers, separating children from their families and putting teenagers and children in detention centers in these facilities, that I am vehemently opposed when Biden does it as well. That's what I wanted to say. And I think at some point in that 7 or 8 minutes, I might have spent 30 to 45 seconds saying just that. But the rest of the video was me being angry. And a couple of people in the comments reached out and said, hey, they let me know what they thought. And I thought, yeah, you know what, they're absolutely right. And as somebody else made mention that the facility was different than the ones that we were used to watching on the news during the Trump administration. And so I went looking for that, and of course I found it. So this is my mea culpa. I'm still adamantly opposed that youth are put in any kind of facility like this. My mea culpa is about my reaction. See, normally when I read the news, when I watch for things and find stories that I can talk about, trying to relate what's going on in those stories back to us so that we can learn from what these people around us are doing, from what the people in these stories, how the people in these stories are behaving and how they're acting and what they're doing. We can learn from that and become and grow. It requires me to respond to the story. It requires me to take the story, to take it apart, to look at it, to study a little bit. To ask myself, where in the Bible does it say something about this? To ask myself, what does philosophy happen to say about this? To ask myself, what does the traditions of the church happen to say about this? And then try to offer you a coherent response to whichever story it happens to be. In this particular case, I didn't respond. I reacted. And so I think what I'm trying to do today is I'm trying to offer up my mistake as something that we can all learn from. Because when I reacted from a very guttural place. It really turns my stomach to think of my children in a situation like that. It turns my stomach to think of any child in a situation like that. And that's where it came from. See, a reaction is sort of an instantaneous moment where something has occurred and you behave, you shift, you make a movement, you open your mouth, whatever it happens to be. And reactions aren't necessarily always bad. Sometimes a reaction is incredibly good. When your child steps out in front of a car, the reaction is to grab them and pull them back. That is a good reaction. Sometimes, however, reactions aren't necessarily good. Sometimes reactions are based on previous trauma, previous fears, previous experiences. And even though we're not in those moments again, that history comes up through our reaction and it can cause problems. A response, however, is calculated. It's thought out. It's considered. We don't respond immediately. We take our time to respond. And when we take our time to respond, we can do things like research a subject, research a news story. And when those comments came in and I began doing the research, I realized, oh wait, I had read one article about that story. Normally I would read 3, 4, 5 articles about a story like this so that I can offer a valid opinion. This time I read one. That was a reaction. If I had kept going, I would have stumbled across NPR, and I'll include it in the description, I would have stumbled across NPR's fact check of the story, which was incredibly illuminating, and I think it was actually quite balanced as well. One of the things it said is, this isn't something anybody wants, but this is all we have right now. We are moving forward in other directions, hopefully to do better. The other thing it said was, this is not one of the camps that we were all used to seeing on the news. This isn't an old Walmart where children are fenced in with nothing to take, with no one and nothing to take care of them. This is a building with a gym, and it's a building with bunk beds, and it's a building with a cafeteria and with teachers and with supervision. It's still not perfect, but it's better than what was. It also made mention that this was a building that the Trump administration had built in order to house youth that were coming across the border. Now, if I had chosen to respond, I would have come across all this. Instead, I let my reaction get ahead of me. And that can cause damage, right? Especially in a medium like this, if all I get up here and do is just rant, and what I'm saying is wrong, how many other opinions am I harming? How many other people am I leading astray? In a moment like this, a response would have been much better, so mea culpa. What would I have said? If I had responded, I would have said, well, this is a better situation than what was 2 or 3 years ago, but it's still not perfect. I'm still not happy about it. We shouldn't be happy about it. We wouldn't be happy about it if it was the Republican Party, if it was a Republican administration. We shouldn't be happy about it that it's the Democrat administration. Ultimately, that was the point that I was trying to make. But like I said, I spent probably 7.5 minutes making a completely different one. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you, and may you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. I pray that as situations arise for you and I, that we will react when a reaction is best. But more often than not, we will take the time to offer considerate, well thought out responses. Amen.